Here, a woman in her 40s suffering from a long-time depression also. And she dreams, I am in my kitchen preparing dinner for some friends who are expected to visit. There is a window in front of me through which I can look into the garden of my house. In that garden, close to the house, a little girl about 5 years old is playing. I am watching her. She is wearing nice clothes. She plays in the flowers and seems to enjoy herself. And behind the garden, I can see a building site. People are building a house there, a new house. The little girl comes into the kitchen and her beautiful clothes are all dirty, full of muddy soil, and I'm very upset. I'd like to suggest you to make a stop here, a pause, and practice reformulating that dream, sentence by sentence. How would you rewrite the dream story, fully owning all the dream elements? Take your time and then move on. So, my suggestion, the dreamer finds herself in her kitchen preparing food. That indicates that she is actively involved in taking care of her own needs for self-nurturing and growth. Friends are expected. That indicates that she is preparing to meet and to celebrate with other parts of her, possibly more resourceful part of her, feeling oneness, feeling harmony, feeling joy. So she is preparing to reach that point where she can celebrate her inner achievement of harmony, connectedness with her inner resources, friends. However, that will be for later. They're not there yet. She's just preparing. Right now, she is observing her inner child playing outside, in the outside situation. So possibly that part of her that is a hurt inner space, that is a growing space, is connected to outer conditions. The part of her that is vulnerable, that carries memories of her own childhood, she's observing that. She's looking, possibly working on that part. And then she sees the building side, and of course a building side, building of her own new personality. That's her own reconstruction. So when the little girl comes closer to her awareness inside, she discovers that she is carrying traces of dirt. Well, that would indicate that there are some unresolved issues, dirty looking things inside. Her clean appearance has turned into something disastrous. She's upset about it. There is a lot of anger coming out. So indeed, as a comment, this dream refers to something dirty that has happened to her when she was a child, the part of her that carries these memories, that is vulnerable and still carries. So she is in touch with a childhood trauma, something that has left inner traces of dirt on her, which is a clear indication of something that needs to be identified and healed. As it appeared in the counseling process, she had indeed been a victim of sexual abuse. So the dream was announcing that discovery, which in fact somewhere in herself she knew it was coming up in her consciousness. So here we have another woman. I am feeding my baby boy some food with a spoon. But that baby does not like it and is unhappy. Then I realize I have milk in my breasts and I can breastfeed my baby. I put him at the breast and the baby starts sucking wildly, as if it had been starving for a long time. He behaves with such a violence that I get scared. Then all of a sudden, it's all over. The baby has had enough. In fact, too much of it. He looks unhappy. I take him at my shoulder to make him burp, but the child vomits all the milk and it's a total mess. Again, take a few minutes and practice reformulating this dream. And when you're ready, just keep watching further. Take your time. My reformulation: I'm feeding my baby boy. I am trying to take care of my own transformational needs, my needs for nourishment and growth. But I am not satisfied with the approach I explored. The baby doesn't like it, it's not happy. She's giving food with a spoon. It's not exactly the most appropriate food for that baby. So I'm not satisfied with the approach I explore, with what I'm providing to myself. Then I realize I have milk in my breasts. I discover some inner work I can do. A meditational approach, probably, which makes me discover my inner resources. I practice that intensively, as if I had been craving for it, sucking wildly. With such a passion that I wondered if it was not too much, sucking with violence, that I got scared. Maybe this is too much. Too intensely involved. Then I reached a point where I realized it was out of balance. I couldn't take anymore. And I tried to rebalance things and stop being obsessed by it, the burp. But I did have a strong rejection of the approach, the vomiting. So I felt totally upset and confused. Take some time to compare this reformulation with yours and see what you can learn from it. To summarize this dream, there is a desire to nurture her needs for growth and development, possibly a healing process. She is going into something that is not appropriate at first, then withdrawing from it. Then she finds an approach that is more relying on her inner resources, the milk. And she's going into that fully, strongly, violently almost, in an unbalanced way. Then she feels she has too much of it and she can't bear anymore any connection with that approach. So what can she learn from that? You would have to go through these 3 questions. Relate that to her real life situation. Ask her if there are some resource elements in the dream, or possibly the breastfeeding is a resourceful thing, but it needs to be done in a balanced way. What is the dream inviting her to? Certainly should be looked at in a very practical way in her situation around the dream process. What is it that has been upsetting her, that she has been rejecting, and what can she learn from her specific conditions? We're not going to go into the details of that. Going back to the dream, welcoming feelings, breathing, disidentifying. Okay, you can always mainly explore the real life situations, the real life options. Let's look at this dream. I am on my way home and I see a little girl about 4 years old in front of a collapsed building. She's looking at me, so I go towards her. She tells me that she's lost and doesn't know how to get back to her home. She asks me to take her home. She looks very cute and well behaved. I can't help but falling in love with her at once, and I decide to help her. First, I take her to my apartment, my home. I help her to take a shower and dress up with clean clothes. Then I give her candy, and she looks very happy. We go together to her home, and when we arrive, I find the house crowded with people. They all seem very busy. I try to get attention from some of them, but I just can't speak out loud. I can only watch them silently. Some glance at me and the girl and then turn back to their work. At that moment, I realize this little girl has been abandoned by her family. I can see how many times she tried to get rid of her. They tried to get rid of her, and how many times she tried to come back to them. The little girl looks like she is not really aware of it all, and she seems to be smiling innocently. But then I make a decision. If this family doesn't accept her, I will adopt her and give her all my love. So here, a short reformulation. I am on my journey towards connection with my deeper self on my way home. I see my inner child, that part of me that is in need of care and attention. I see that I am in deep changing process, a collapsed building. My inner child wants to go home to reconnect with inner resources. She needs to be integrated into the whole of my personality. I recognize the beauty of my inner child. I fall in love with her. I take care of that part of me, give her clothes, nourishment, attention, sweets. I want to integrate my growing self in the whole of my life. But I have too little time to be with myself, and I have too little time to pay attention to my deeper needs. These people there in the home are too busy to take care of that child. So the parts of her are too busy. Here, the part of me that identifies with my loving and resourceful self, my inner parent, is the I perspective. Tries to get the attention of the other parts of the subpersonalities, but I just can't speak out. The inner parent is not yet strong enough to impose its voice to the different aspects of my personality. So I can see how my deeper needs have always been put aside to give priority to duties, work, and various responsibilities. But right now, I decide to do that, to open up my heart fully to that part of me that is sensitive, emotional, vulnerable, and that needs my loving attention in order to grow and develop into a strong, mature person. So I adopt her. So this dream is indeed reflecting that this young woman is ready for paying more attention to her personal development. And that's what she did. Are there resource elements? What do you think? The most obvious resource element is the I perspective in this one. So she can just stay with that. And that's very strong when you can dream about a perspective in the I perspective that is most resourceful. That means you have access to these inner resources, that fully empowered part of your being. So you can just anchor her into that and address possibly some words of love towards all the parts of her being and celebrate oneness, clarify her intention. Just to recap once more, the change of perspective is needed when you don't have a resourceful I perspective. When you do have, you just talk to the powerless perspective or the limited perspectives. Identifying inner spaces, changing perspectives, healing the hurt inner space implies talking to it and bringing it into your presence. Saying words of love, we are one, come into my presence, I love you. Breathing and feeling, anchoring into the resourceful perspective. Then you can also, of course, identify the real life situations, see what you can learn from the dream in terms of practical steps that you can take. So this is it for today. Do pay attention to your own dreams, keep practicing reformulation, and whenever you can, of course, process your own dreams, change perspectives, do this inner work as we have shown and demonstrated a number of times, and we will keep demonstrating this and practicing this. So good luck, see you next time, bye bye for now.